Hey guys, it's my channel again, and this is the Manhattan channel, and I want to show you the books that I got for Christmas. These are older books, like from the 1990s, and this is from the 1990s and stuff. So 1990s, early 2000s. So, if you guys remember this book, they have 6 books in the Native American series. They have one more book called If You Lived in the Alaskan Territory, and that talks all about the Eskimos and what they did, what they ate, what their school was like, what children, how children were born, and different things like that. So, the first one in the Native American series I'm going to show you is called If You Lived with the Iroquois. And this book explains all about the things of the Iroquois, like what was your house like, what you learned to read, would you learn to read and write, what holidays would you celebrate, different time, a different place, what if you were there. These books tell you about what it was like to grow up in an Iroquois family hundreds of years ago. And this was written in 1998, so some of these are 98 and 2000. So I had this book and I got a new issue copy. And so this is really interesting. Talks about how many ways would you use corn, would you eat meals with your family, did the family own the land it farmed? These are just some topics. When did babies get their names? What kinds of food did you eat? Where did you get meat and fish? These are just different questions of what would you do kind of scenarios. So that's the first book. And the next book is called, in this series, in the Native American series, is If You Live with the Sioux Indians. So this is by Anne McGovern, and this was written in 1974. And so it says, would your parents be strict? Would you make out, what could you make out of a buffalo? What would be the bravest thing you could do? These are different things that they asked, and different things, what did the Sioux Indians look like? What did Sioux children go to school? What kind of clothes did you wear? How did a Sioux get a wife? What was the most important time in a boy's life? What was the Sioux religion? How did the Sioux worship? Those different things about the Sioux Indians. Then you had, in the next one in the series, you had If You Lived with the Cherokee. So these were different things about the Cherokee, their lifestyle, and how they grew up. How did you get your name? What was your village like? Did you go to school? Those are all the different questions that they would ask about the Cherokee. And this was written, I think, 1998. Then the next book in the series was called If You Lived with the Hopi. And this explained all about the Hopi. What kind of house would you live in? Who would be your teachers? What jobs would you do? How would you have fun? So these were different things that were in this series here. And those are different questions. And this was written in 1999. It says, would you live in a teepee? Who would live in your house? Those are some questions. Just some general questions. And then that was the 5th book in the series, is If You Live with Indians of the Northwest Coast. And this book tells you what kind of house would you live in? What kind of clothes would you wear? What would be your favorite food? Would you grow up to be a fisherman? a wood carver, a weaver, or maybe a powerful chief? You know, these are things that you would be answered in this book. And then the sixth and final book in the series, I don't have it yet, is If You Lived in Alaskan Territory in this Native American series. And then also in the If You Lived With series was if you travel west in a covered wagon. They would answer questions about that. Important times in history. So would you ride in a wagon for the whole trip? How would you cross rivers when there were no bridges without road signs? How would you know where you were? So these are questions that if you're curious about how it was like to travel in a covered wagon. And here's one, if you're very curious about the Mayflower, here's one called If You Sailed on the Mayflower in 1620. And it says, what would you take with you? What would you keep clean? How would you keep clean? What would you do when you first got to shore? You know, and some of the other books were called If You Lived in Colonial Times, If You Grew Up with George Washington, If You Grew Up with Abraham Lincoln, If You Traveled West in a Covered Wagon. That was another book. Now here's one that's very interesting. And if you're interested in the first Thanksgiving, it says, if you were at the first Thanksgiving. So this talks about a different time, different place. What if you were there, you know? How did you help get ready for the party? What kind of clothes did you wear? What did you have to eat and how did you eat it? What did you do after the feast? You know, these are just a few questions about the first Thanksgiving. Now, if you're interested about 100 years ago, this is one called If You Lived 100 Years Ago. This talks about the early 1900s. And it says in the year 1900. So what kind of clothes would you wear? What would you do for fun? What would your school be like? Would you have a refrigerator or a television? These are the questions about the 1900s. And here's the last book that I got in this stack was If You Lived in Colonial Times. If you lived in colonial times, what kind of clothes would you wear? Would you go to school? What would happen if you didn't behave? This book tells you what it was like to live in the New England colonies during the years 1565 to 1776. So, I'm trying to get the Alaskan Territory one. So, I hope you like it. And please comment, like, and subscribe to the Manhunting channel. Bye!